we've recorded, 2002 in review, our plan growth for this summer, for this coming year, 2022, 2023. And then we'll move into budgeting, both assessing our budgeting from this past year and looking into our budgeting for this coming year, and then going into our fundraising needs for this coming year. So to begin, we're just going to review our mission, as we like to do, to remind ourselves and redirect ourselves. Lech Lecha facilitates empowering outdoor adventures and wilderness journeys that catalyze personal development and spiritual growth, connection with the wonder of Hashem's creation, meaningful interpersonal relationships, and joyful community deeply rooted in Torah and the holistic approach to Jewish life and practice. It always brings a smile to my face. Wonderful. So 2002 in review. I'll begin with presenting 2002, and then Yehuda will jump in and presenting our future plans. So we're grateful to have had more participants this year than ever before, including our programs for teens, for adults in America, outings clubs, online opportunities, and here in Israel. Our teen program grew almost double this year with 13 participants from 8 to 13. I guess that's not really almost doubling, but it's pretty good. And our participants had a wonderful time, wonderful experience on a 6-day trek. We had outings clubs in a variety of cities: Pittsburgh, Boston area, New York, Washington, D.C. Over the past year, we had online programs, primarily our Hitorah Root program, which is a morning meditation program that happened monthly for Rosh Chodesh for a number of months. In addition to our adult programs, which over 80 participants joined, from canoeing in Wisconsin to meditating in Israel to backpacking in Pennsylvania, and a wonderful trip in New Hampshire, and a variety of other experiences. It was a really tremendous summer, one of much learning and growth, and of much connection in achieving many of the goals in our mission. So we're grateful for this past summer. As you can see, the growth continues to rise yearly. Our total participants over the past 5 years, almost up to 500. And you can see the breakdown between teens, adults, outdoors, and outdoors clubs and online programming. As you can see, there's much room for growth. We really haven't invested much in online programming, which has tremendous potential, but we haven't used. I mean, we're an outdoor adventure program, but in terms of retention and ways in which we can continue to grow in the future, just to say and to show that almost all of our participants are participants in immersive overnight programming. We're not just talking about people who sign up for for 1 hour program, but people who are spending 3 days, 4 days, 6 days together in the woods for really transformative outings. In terms of our overnight programs, you can see just these are not the number of participants, but the number of programs growing from just 2 in 2019 to 8 programs in 2022, and among our adults, and 1 program for teens. Again, I'll just explain. We had 2 programs for teens in 2020. That was the summer when there was no summer camp. So we had 2 groups from Camp Ramah and Camp Ramah in Palmer and Camp Ramah in the Rockies. Those participants then the next summer returned to camp. So we only had 1 returnee from 2020 to 2021. And then from 2021 to 2022, we had 6 returnees, which is a really tremendous, from 6 out of 8 returning participants from 2021 to 2022. So we see tremendous potential growth in our teen program. One plan for growth that we are working towards, that Yehuda will speak about more, is that you see in 2021, we thankfully were able to work with Chazon's youth group to run an immersive program as a collaboration, and really as a client. But this summer, we actually did not, unfortunately, follow through on our potential client and collaboration programs. They fell through for a number of reasons, but it's something that we really want to focus on in the future, are focusing on in the future, and we'll come to that discussion soon. We won't go through this in detail as it's been discussed before, but we continue to have tremendous feedback from our programs in terms of engagement, in group bonding, in Jewish values and learning and spiritual experience, high recommendations, and high interest in participating in another trek in the future. Continue to have people who return some after summer, like Camille, one of our favorites. And we're very grateful to have had such tremendous feedback. And at this point, we also have a good number of Lech Lecha groupies who are following us, and a few of Camille led a group this summer, and a few of our participants became our groupies. So I'm very excited to be really developing and building a community. This is just a few of the comments that continue to bring us warmth, how deeply moving, healing, filling, surrounded by truth tellers in the beauty of this earth. We won't read them all, but the responses have been really meaningful and heartwarming. Another update from this year that is very exciting is that we're one of 5 who was accepted into the OU Impact Accelerator for burgeoning nonprofits. Remind me, Yehuda, how many applied?
71.
71. So one of 5 out of 71 applicants. The application was quite intensive, and Yehuda and I both invested much in the application process and are continuing to invest much in the accelerator itself. The accelerator is quite intensive as well, requires 2 meetings per week that are learning and training sessions in order to build our skills as nonprofit, the directors, as builders of nonprofits. We also have meetings with the director of the program, as well as with a personal mentor on a regular basis. We're learning about fundraising, governance, legal issues that arise in nonprofits, about marketing, about organizational, building the organizational capacity. So it's really a nonprofit boot camp, a little business boot camp for nonprofits that's been tremendously beneficial, I think, to our organization, to Yehuda and myself, especially myself as leaders, in addition to potential connections for the future, some of which we've already capitalized on in terms of advice, advisors who we've turned to, but also potentially in the future with clients and organizations who also work with the OU, with whom we can be in partnership or with whom we can provide services in the future. And that's another really exciting development from this year. I'll just offer us a little round of applause because it's exciting. Amazing. It also comes with a $10,000 grant, which we are grateful for. And that is a quick summary of this year. Last meeting, we went over our mission, our vision, our story, which were also a tremendous element of our investments this year, in addition to our 2025 program portfolio that we worked much on, and our plan in reaching that in reaching that portfolio in the coming years. I will now pass the baton to Yehuda. But before I do so, I just open to any questions. We'll pause for questions at each breaking point, just for a few minutes that we continue moving. But prior to moving to plan growth, if there are any questions, please share. Okay, perfect. So we'll jump forward.
Okay, there we go. Okay, great. Thank you, Ariella. So for growth, our focus moving forward is very much on ongoing program development and improvement, as well as switching models to some extent. So with regard to teens, one highlight that we wanted to speak about is that we're moving from, and this is at the, this was initiated by the request of past participants and parents of past participants that they wanted more. They wanted longer trips. So we're moving from trips that were around 6 days to trips that have an 8-day and a 14-day option. So the whole trip would be 14 days. And just like for a camp, somebody could do 1 session or 2. Same idea here. So that demonstrates, as I say, increased interest and sort of expansion as well. For adults, we are looking to diversify our offerings a bit. We'll speak about that actually here with Schultz. One example of how we're doing that is we've been developing the idea of a fellowship program, a leadership training program, specifically a Jewish outdoor leadership training program, and thinking about different ways in which we could manifest that and different ways it could take shape. And we learned of an opportunity through Arnie, thank you Arnie, at Boston Combined Jewish Philanthropies Miriam Fund. So we've submitted an application for participation and a grant with the Miriam Fund. Specifically, hold on just a second. Specifically, that will be a year-long women's outdoor leadership training program focused on Massachusetts residents based on the CJP catchment area. And the population served would be 12 women over the age of 18. And we could speak more detail about that later, share any materials with you. But that's an example of our work on focusing on niche populations and diversifying the opportunities, as well as seeking funding through federations and foundations. Hold on 1 second. I'm sorry, I'm having a window issue. Okay. A major pivot that we're making is to working with clients. So as opposed to the focus in the first few years, working with individual registrants, both teens and adults, we are still certainly doing that. But we're going to be, we're looking to work a lot more with clients, schools, camps, college organizations like Hillel and OUJLIC, and others as well. And we'll get into that more in a little bit when we look at our one-pager in progress. But a major idea to keep in mind here is that we are at an inflection point, right? Lech Lecha is at an inflection point where we need to develop our programming and our content and our curriculum and our organizational capacity. And Nadav spoke about partnerships that didn't come through. And so we're moving to more of a kind of a very deliberate strategic partnership idea where it's not just sort of who we can partner with, but who do we want to partner with, and what organizations will we be able to develop mutually beneficial relationships with. With regard to schools, we are working on our initial development of a curriculum, speaking with a couple of schools about potential pilot operations, pilot programs. And so the curriculum development is a pretty intensive and extensive project that we're working on. Also doing market research in terms of schools. communities. This is how we're framing another part of our program portfolio, both engaging existing communities and building new communities. Again, that kind of goes cross organization, like the JOLT program that I spoke about a moment ago. That would be an example of both engaging communities, and that's Boston CJP's rubric. It's sort of community enhancement, but also building a new community. So communities, both building and or engaging and building. Outings clubs, that's a continuing focus. Online courses, that's something we'll be looking to further develop along with our larger project of organizational and programmatic development. And Chesed initiatives, we have a couple of ideas. Chesed, Tikkun Olam, in a way that is tailored for what Lech Lecha is and what Lech Lecha does and what Lech Lecha values. So one of them would be a restoration ecology project, where we, where the participants, some aspect of the trip, some focus in development, but some focus would be on working with a degraded landscape, possibly wilderness, possibly less so, and working on a restoration ecology project. And the other one, Hike for Mental Health, I'll turn back over to Nadav, and then he'll take us into budgeting.
Wonderful. Yes, the idea of a hike for mental health is gathering folks to raise money on a hike, and similar to having runs for or a walk for diabetes, whatever it is that a group is raising money for, to gather with other organizations that are focused on mental health, other organizations that focus on outdoor adventure, and to facilitate a hike that raises money for important organizations, important initiatives, one of which is mental health, which is a particularly importance for us as an outdoor adventure organization. We see that our programs are very much oriented on healing and taking a step out of the pressures of our environment in order to come into greater mental health. It's just one idea of ways in which we can incorporate chesed in addition to the restoration ecology that Yehuda touched upon. I'll add just a small explanation of what Yehuda was insinuating regarding working with clients. Much of the reason our clients' efforts did not work this summer is because we didn't really treat them as clients. We treated them somewhat as collaborations. We're working together to try to build something. And the result was that there was a lot of backing out from our collaborators. You know, it's actually a hard time. We actually don't have enough participants. It's not going to work. To really build a sense of commitment, of trust, we are providing for you as the consumer of our product, and doing so in a professional and a direct and clear way, which is our intention moving forward. And again, requires really developing clearly our curriculum, our provisions, clear legal standards for the contracts that need to be signed from the start for these relationships. And that's something that, again, will require a significant amount of capacity building as an organization and of curriculum development. So we move into budget. Before we do so, an opportunity for any questions in the middle.
If I may, I'm curious if you could speak a little bit more about what is the difference between relating to somebody as a collaborator versus relating to somebody as a client.
So the basic structure of the collaboration is, let's try to build a program together. Your contributions, my contributions, our contributions as an organization. And then we'll offer that program to your population, and we'll hope that they bite. So this has raised two challenges. The first is that it requires a tremendous amount of time investment in meeting with this organization and building a program in collaboration with them. We spent so much time last year in collaboration with and developing programs with organizations that then fell into the second challenge, which is that we reach out to their population, which is, first of all, their responsibility, right? We don't have their population, we don't know their population, and we don't have access to them. So we can't force that they do a good job marketing the program. And some don't, because they decide in the end, actually, I have this other program that isn't getting enough participants. I'm going to push that one, and I can't push two programs at once. So they end up backing somewhat out of actually reaching out, investing and reaching out to their populations. Those are two primary weaknesses. We have to invest a lot of time, which we did really hours, and hours is money, this past year in building programs of organizations who then have not effectively reached out to their populations and brought us the participants. The way in which a client program will work is that we have programs and offerings designed prior. You can pick of our offerings. It doesn't require us adjusting significantly each. Of course, we can alter programming for the needs of an individual organization, but it doesn't require a whole new development from us from the start. Minimal. And secondly, you're committing to run our program. If you don't get participants, you've already put the down payment, and we have already been paid for the time that we've invested. So you're responsible for getting those. And if not, you're going to lose money, which makes the client organization have far more incentive to bring their participants, which might mean that instead of reaching out to their population, they decide, you know, we want a staff development program in which our participants are already built in, or whatever it is. But that's for the client to figure out how they'll ensure that they bring participants to the program that they're already paying for. But what we know is that we are getting paid for the time that we're investing, which both makes it far more sustainable for us, but also makes it more likely for the program to actually get off the ground and for the organization to benefit from what we have to offer.
Clearly, you don't need my thumbs up, but I will give my thumbs up to that anyway. As some of you may know or may recall, if we've met before, I'm the director of Avenim Adventures. We do run wilderness trips, and definitely I would say over the years learned a very similar thing, which is, and I think it was something that you guys are doing on both ends, both the client versus collaboration, but also working with groups as opposed to just trying to get individuals. That when you work with an organization and you get them to sign up, it just takes so much of that work off of your plate for, you know, schlepping each and every single participant and getting them to sign up. It's definitely an enormous time sink. So kol hakavod and chazak v'amatz.
I'll just address, Sandy wrote, can we also get a list of individual programs over the last 2 years and any scheduled upcoming programs? Absolutely, and I'll be happy to send that out. At the moment, there are not scheduled upcoming programs because our programs are going to pick back up in the spring and summer, unless hopefully we'll be piloting this program with a school in Seattle starting in the second semester, starting in January, February. So we'll be happy to do that, though, to send out both a list of programs over the last 2 years, as well as to continue to send out in the future upcoming programs as they arise. Okay.
It looks like Noah has his hand raised. I can't tell.
I can't necessarily see because I only see a certain number of people. So
Yeah.
Noah, jump in if you have a question. I apologize.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if you can clarify when you say schools, what like age groups you're talking about.
Who do you want to jump?
Sure. One school that we have been in conversation with, the focus there is 9th grade, but we're also looking to develop programs for 8th and possibly 7th grade as well. And then the grades after 9th grade, possibly those grades as well, but that would be in the future. So I would say in order of focus, and Nadav, feel free to correct me here, but I think the focus would be 9th grade, 8th grade, possibly 7th grade.
Yeah, and this is a good example of
Well-
collaboration versus client, in which what we're trying to do organizationally is say, let's invest in 9th grade. If we believe in 9th grade, let's invest in 9th grade. Of course, that requires some market research, which is something that we'll get to in a second. But if we are invested in 9th grade, we'll build an excellent program for 9th graders, pilot it, and try to spread it, as opposed to this school wants 7th grade, this school wants 9th grade, this school wants 12th grade. We have to adjust it for each school, which makes it so that for every school who is requiring their own demands, we build not excellent program, because it's very difficult to adjust programs all the time and to have it be in the same level of excellence as if we focus on building a curriculum for 9th grade, try to excellently deliver that program, and then when the time comes, expand if there's interest. But I think right now our focus is 9th grade is what we're developing. There was a school that turned to us with interest for a program of 7th and 8th graders. We decided not to move forward with that school just because their communication was so difficult that it was wasting far more time than it did. But also because we're trying to focus on 9th grade right now. Sandy asked if we've considered whether there is any potential relationship with Moishi House. So we have had conversation with Moishi Houses, and we've worked with Moishi Houses in the past, collaborating with Moishi Houses. Moishi House has considered us for being their outdoor adventure provider. That when there is a Moishi House who is interested in doing an outdoor adventure program, they turn to us as a third-party organization, not as a Moishi House organization. So that's something that we definitely would love to see happen. Unfortunately, that conversation did not end up with them stamping our organization as their provider, but we are listed as a provider. I hope that transitions to being the provider at the right time. Okay, we're going to move into budget. Baruch haba, Rav Dober. So this is the budget from this past year, 2021 to 2022. Our fiscal year is listed here as September 21st to August 31st because most of our income is over the summer and the new year begins at the summer's end. So program fees from adult treks are $17,913. From teen treks, $10,360. You'll note that teen treks only has 13 participants and adult treks has 80 participants. How could it be that adult treks are paying so much less? First of all, a huge percentage of adults ask for subsidy. Second of all, it's 3-day, 4-day, at most 5-day treks with adults as opposed to the teens. And in the first place, we charge more for teen treks as their parents are paying rather than adult treks. But that continues to be a challenge, trying to ensure that adults pay for the quality of the program that they're receiving and the cost of the program that they're receiving. That we'll continue to need to raise money to subsidize adult treks because the population that we're turning to often is just beginning their career, is paying for their apartment, is feeling that they don't have enough to afford full payment. So that's a continued direction in the future to be able to provide additional subsidies in order that the revenue from adult treks can at least be in accordance with the actual cost of adult treks, including those subsidies. Small funds from gear rentals, a $10,000 grant from OU, which is not yet in our bank account, but which we will receive. Individual donors, in-kind donors, $2,700. We did very little fundraising this year, primarily because of, as we emailed in September, our challenge with the 501c3 that arose that didn't allow us to seek funding from donors. We hope that that number shifts dramatically this coming year, as you'll see in the next slide. You can see our expenses. The primary expense is salaries, as it always is. Unfortunately, the number for salaries is not as large as it needs to be. And as you see, 2 of our staff members from this year are not present. They're no longer working with us. They were able to find other work, more hours, higher paying. We want to make sure as an organization that we're able to offer sustainable salaries and attractive salaries, attractive hours to our staff. I'll add that next week we will be hiring, actually this week, we have interviews from tomorrow until Friday for our community engagement position, to whom we'll hopefully offer an attractive position. But one of the reasons in which we really need to boost our fundraising game and our revenue. Direct leaders, obviously the costs of the direct program costs, in addition to marketing, insurance, taxes, even though we're a 501c3, nonetheless, every time we pay a salary, there are taxes on the salary, as well as compliance with the Massachusetts governance, as well as other, they're all over the place, even though that number is not so high. The main point that I'll share here is that though we hope to expand our budget significantly in the future, we are proud to be in the green, to have revenue that is greater than our expenses, and to be sustainable, to be providing salaries, even though we're not at the level in which we'd like to be. We are proud to be in the green, to be a healthy in a healthy financial situation that we hope to be even more even stronger in the future.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, and this might be, I gather we're going to see the projected budget for next year, or assume it'll show a different expense structure and some more salaries. But do you, I know this is a hard question, but
Yeah.
Of course, you have a profit here because your expenses are artificially low because you're not paying real salaries. But
Right.
have you kind of figured out, well, what that would be if you had, and I'm not talking about, an exponentially large organization, but in terms of, so what you see as your real essential staffing, what that would look like in terms of, salaries and related expenses?
Yeah, so let's look at the next slide.
I don't know if it's like here, or this is something you'd be looking a few years down the road, but yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, a few years down the road, but we have developed an ideal for running as for running as a small organization. Not talking about now becoming $1 million organization, but to sustainably run. Let's jump to the next slide, and then. Okay, so let's look down at expenses in terms of sustainable salaries. I'm the executive director, and I've listed myself as the highest salary receiver, but I do have the most experience with the organization, and obviously these are ideal numbers. You as the director of operations, we would like to hire a full-time director of community outreach, which is not an incredible salary, but is not a terrible starting salary for a young individual, as well as a program coordinator to be working with individual clients. It's so important that there are individuals who are dedicated to working with individual clients, reaching out to clients, the director of community outreach, working with outings clubs to continue to engage new participants, to continue to engage past participants, our director of operation to be able to take care of our finances as they need to be taken care of, all of our compliance issues, to continue to work on our direction and expanding our funding is probably the number one issue of the director of operations, to be reaching out to foundations, funding, donors, etc. And executive director continuing to expand our curricula, to continue to expand our programming, to connect to donors as well as parents, and to run the organization as I have. Those are the 4 positions that we see as most essential to be able to have a sustainable and thriving organization at our, at the next level, a little bit beyond our current. There are additional costs that we're assuming that we want to grow significantly next year. One is to invest far more in Trek leader training, which is part of the JOLT program, the Jewish Outdoor Leadership Training Program, to be able to provide our Trek leaders with WFR training, wilderness first responder training, as well as to invest in training in Jewish education, outdoor Jewish education, creative education. We want to spend far more time with really investing in our leaders so that they stick with us, that they lead multiple treks over the summer. Now that we really have outstanding leaders, they make the trip. In addition, investing more in specialty trips, climbing instructors, canoeing opportunities, kayaking, etc., as well as greater investments in marketing, both in developing really solid videos for the organization, which are so impactful, as well as marketing campaigns, whether that's on social media or at the homes of teen parents, to reach out to their community, to invest far more in that. That's a small number for marketing, and I'm sure that'll grow. As our expenses grow, our taxes grow significantly. So just an important note of the increase in salaries also causes significant increases in taxes and compliant costs. This is
this is all good, but we're 2 months into already this budget year. Is this more of an aspirational budget that might be more of a template for future years, or is this something that this is an actual budget that you expect to execute on in this fiscal year?
It's definitely an aspirational budget, and it is definitely an aspirational budget that we would hope to fulfill this year. Really, it's aspirational to raise this money and from grants and donors over this year, in order to be able to transition into this team and this budget over the coming year. Exactly how and when that transition will take place, I think only time will tell. We aspire next year to have these expenses. This year, we know we're not going to have expenses at this level, but with the projection of these expenses, we then develop our aspiration for grants and donors, which we need to pursue now with the aspiration for expenses next year. Now, I just want to note that we do, one reason why we wrote this and we discussed this, the complication of it really being next year's budget, but somewhat being this year's budget, because really the expenses are potentially next year's and the revenue is hopefully this year's. So one important factor there is that we perceive this team and these expenses as producing far more revenue than what's listed here. Meaning if we have a full-time team that's really able to pursue clients and develop our year-round programming with schools, with nonprofits, outings clubs, etc., all of which we hope to be forms of revenue, then we expect our revenue to be far higher. That being said, we know that this is not the team we currently have, and we don't want to overestimate our revenue in order to yes, overestimate the amount that we want to raise in grants and donors in order to do as best we can to meet these needs for next year.
And Nadav, if I may, I'll add a couple of points.
Yeah.
I didn't see, I have a smaller screen here. So Sandy, was that your question? Or?
I'm sorry, which
Yeah, that
way?
was Sandy's question, yeah.
Okay, I didn't see who asked the question, yeah. So I think that a key point to keep in mind is that that Lech Lecha is at an inflection point right now, right? So we believe that the organization has established proof of concept, demonstrated significant community interest and buy-in as a startup, and now we're looking to make a couple of several transitions. In terms of the budget and the aspirational aspect, the transitions, I'd say two of the key transitions are doing fundraising in a more serious way than was done in the first few years, and also ideally switching to much more of an earned revenue model. And actually at a third, switching to a year-round program portfolio as opposed to summer only, primarily summer. So if we're able to transition to that earned revenue model with our focus on clients, then that will be a major financial change for the organization. Prior to that, we're at the point in our life cycle where we need seed funding, right, to support the scale up of the organization at these transitions. So in terms of the year-round aspect, if we have time, we'll get to that. To look at our one-pager, and I'll just run through a couple of quick points about fundraising. With regard to foundations and federations, there's the OU, and coming up, I'm not sure the exact date, Nadav knows it, will be pitch night, where we have an opportunity to pitch to potential donors and representatives from foundations and possibly federations as well. We've established contact with two foundations to start with, one smaller and one of the larger foundations in the communal arena. So we have those connections, and we're working on our one-pager, and as soon as it's done, it will be sent out to those contacts. And then there are also the Boston CJP. We have two grant applications in there as well. So just to round it out, it's an aspirational budget, and those are some of the, in addition to what Nadav said, some of the ways in which we're looking to and working on specifically making those aspirations a reality.
Amazing. Yeah, it's an aspirational budget in its expenditures. In its revenue, the aspirational budget receives as much revenue as expenses. Only raising funds, though we'll try to raise as much funds as possible, but our ideal budget, which we didn't include here, but we do have and can send it afterwards, envisions enough revenue to fund our ideal expenses, in addition to raising yearly funds just for subsidies, for program subsidies. So we assume that every year we'll always be raising money for subsidies, but that when we're in our ideal, we'll be receiving enough revenue to meet our expenses. And this transitionary period is how we're trying to get there, to hire a strong, committed staff to be able to reach that potential. Are there any questions here?
Well, I'm just bringing up a question that I put in the chat, and Ari had the same
Oh,
question, just
thank you.
around other, I know that there were some other adult populations aside from the young professionals, which I see as the priority, but and the focus, but are generally not able to pay the full price. And not exclusively for that reason, but I know there were some programs that were potentially going to happen this past year geared more towards less young, as I said, kind of less young adult population. And also, I think there was one that was maybe geared toward families more. I don't know that either of them happened, but I was curious if you have thoughts about the other adult populations aside from the 20 and 30s. And yeah, and you don't have to necessarily, I know you only have a small amount of time.
Right. I'll answer in short, which is that this year we were hoping to have a program with young couples, which is one of the collaborations that fell through. We were hoping to have, they weren't able to get any participants. Neither were we on our end. We were hoping to have a program for older adults, and that was also a collaboration. That was the example of, he had another program that people weren't signing up for, so he decided to cancel our program, which was a very disappointing experience because it was after a lot of hours spent in trying to make a program that fit his requests. So we dropped both those programs. It is of interest. We're trying not to do too much pizur, to try to do too much, become too
like diluted or spread out.
diluted. Yeah,
trying to go
yeah,
top. Yes.
exactly. Right. So I think our focus is trying to grow with what we have and take these few steps of client organizations. If there was a partner who wanted to try to make that happen, so it's definitely something that could use our organizational title, and that we'd happy to offer the resources that we can for you or for someone to try to pursue. But I think we need to try to make sure to be focused as an organization. Okay. Ari, but then we gotta move. Yeah.
Real fast. In talking about the different, and it could be that I missed this, but in talking about the different populations and the different things that you're hoping to do for this year and future years, it seems worthwhile to continue to work on clarifying what differentiates Lech Lecha from the other folks. I know that there are some camps. I think Tani Prero runs a camp, right? That might be a population that you might be competing a little bit with, even though it's a different product. Adults, we work with adults, the right way. What to continue working toward what is really differentiating Lech Lecha. Why is somebody going to choose to go out on a trip with you? Then this world is, thank God, it's growing, which is a good thing, but it also means it's a pressure for a little more clarification.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's something that it's a process that we've done a lot in our applications for funding. A question that's as often that we've done a lot of thinking about, and it's something that we can share more about later. Okay, I want to jump to our fundraising needs because we don't have much time, and we're looking for your support in reaching these funding needs. We won't have enough time to look at the one pager, but Yehuda created a wonderful one pager that we're just in the process of completing. We're hoping to ask for your contributions and advice. We don't have time right now, but maybe we'll try to find a way to send that out in an email in order to gain your advice on that. In terms of fundraising needs, we are wanting to utilize all of our resources and to gather as a community of supporters of Lech Lecha to do our very best to give us the best chance we have to grow as an organization and to meet these goals as we presented, that we really feel that we've given a proof of concept and developed a really wonderful community. With the right investment, we believe that we can transition to being a full-fledged organization that's able to provide really solid programming across the board. as Yehuda expressed, he is investing much in funding through foundations. We're both spending a lot of time there, but we're also trying to solicit individual donations. We're hoping, we're planning to have a crowdfunding campaign on Hanukkah of this year. It's just 2 months away. And our goal for that crowdfunding campaign is significant. It is a $100,000 goal. And our goal within that goal is to, prior to December 18th, raise $50,000 of commitments in order to be able to match every dollar donated, seeking to solicit $50,000 in donations that are matched by the money that we raised prior. Our goal as an advisory board, as a board, as those who are involved, is that we work together to see if we can bring in $25,000 of commitments to support our organization, whether from ourselves or from our networks, from those who we know, who we think can be part of this project. So I will offer a moment for questions about this and thoughts about this, and then I'll share a quick form in which I'll ask you to share your thoughts on if you can be participant. We are asking as much as possible to be participant in 2 ways. Our 2 asks are to commit to donate something. And that could be really $1 to $1 million or even 2. But to commit to, I want to participate in this myself. And then also to say, I want to try to reach out to my network to be part of this project. And our goal is that we can each raise, if not $1,000, then $2,000 or more, to each think about who we can reach out to, who can be in support of this. And if we, as an advisory board, each commit to raising within our network $2,000 for organization, then we will reach, as an advisory board, $25,000. And then Yehuda and I will do our best to raise that other $25,000 from significant donors prior to the crowdfunding campaign. So the average, ideally, would be a $2,000 commitment to fundraise. But we would ask, if you can, and we don't want to make anyone uncomfortable, but as Yehuda and I said, maybe we want to make everyone a little uncomfortable. But we do want to ask if you can make a commitment of trying your best to raise $1,000 through your network, then we really want to encourage that. I know our time is up a few minutes ago, but if you'll give us just 2 more minutes, then I'm going to send out a link that I'll request you to click, and it's only 2 questions. Again, if something does not make you comfortable, then please feel free to abstain or to speak to us directly. But please take a minute to click the link and to fill out the form, and then we'll conclude together in just 2 minutes.